Are you connecting all the dots on the journey to your inner wisdom? Are you looking for a fresh perspective on the messages you've been asking for?
So who doesn't want to be happier, healthier, wealthier, and wiser, and be able to make life's choices with confidence because they finally see the signs? We know you do.
I'm Angela Coulter.
And I'm Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
We're two conscious journeyers dedicated to turning over those rocks and helping you on your personal intuitive sleuthing mission of evolution in our multi-dimensional hologram.
And that includes Earth too.
Yes, it does. Welcome to Solving Me, our conscious puzzle-solving podcast, where we look at the natural relation between your life experiences and their meaning in the bigger picture, from the most mundane to the most overwhelming.
So what do we mean by all this? Well, have you ever thought that getting a flat tire and twisting your ankle could be related? And maybe a message about what's preventing you from getting that awesome, high-paying job you would love. Believe it or not, it's all connected.
Want to know more? Come on and let's get sleuthing. See what comes up in this episode, because it might just be about you. Welcome to episode 19. Today we're going to talk about a great topic for many people because everybody loves them, right?
Right. What is bugging you?
That's right. Literally. No. And so, yeah, bugs and insects, which are their own category in themselves in the animal kingdom, because they typically have a much more specific kind of message for us.
Well, and one of the first things I thought of was, when you go to buy a house and you do the termite inspection, and it's like, think about termites. They're eating the house out from under you or from around you. And it's like, oh, wow. Is that not a message?
Right. And so many just don't see that. They just complain about bugs because, again, it's a thing we call victimhood on. Like, oh,
yeah,
these ants or whatever. I remember, so, living in the South, we see roaches all the time because they're everywhere. Right.
Yes, they are.
And so it was funny because I'll never forget, my husband one day called me from his office and he goes, all right. He's like, what is the message for a roach anyway? And I said, why? He goes, because I swear I've been in 3 different places today. And like, I'm walking, like first I was walking out to the car and there was this roach that ran across the sidewalk or whatever. He's like, and then I did this and I saw one at the gas station. He's like, and then I'm walking up into my office building and one just runs out in front of me on the pathway. And he's like, so I'm like, what's the roach message? And I said, I don't know. I would say it's probably what you would think it is, that it's about versatility and fluidity, and because roaches will outlast humans and nuclear war kind of thing. So probably having to do with being completely adaptable in any situation.
Oh, that's yeah, I would agree. I know my daughters went to college in South Carolina where they have the palmetto bugs that fly.
Yes.
And I know my youngest used to complain because her parking garage was much farther away from her apartment than she really wanted it to be, or her dorm. Mm-hmm. And so she would always be listening for the palmetto bugs. And I'm like, yeah, because you need to be watching where you're going and being aware of your circumstances. You're a girl walking alone at night. You need to pay attention. So I told her they were looking out for her. She did not appreciate that.
Her little guardians.
Right. Her little guardian palmetto bugs.
There's also things like this. Suddenly, a whole swarm of ants descends upon your house. We all have had that situation, especially in the South at one point or another.
Yes.
And so I remember the first time that sort of happened when I was aware. I was in meditation and going, what the heck is the ants all about? And it was like in one specific place. They'd come in, through the back door in the kitchen, and they made this like trail over to, I think it was my dog food at the time when I had my dog. And I was like, what is it? No matter what we did, like they would still do it. They would still come in. And I was in meditation and asked, well, what is this about? And, it was like, the answer I got was, so are you antsy about anything? Ha ha ha. And I'm like, oh, look at that.
How literal is that?
Yeah, how antsy, like what are you antsy about? Or what's, making you edgy, or what is something that you are looking at that you're antsy about?
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a great one. And spiders, I think, are really lots of messages with spiders, and they hide in the corners, and they I don't know, I've always found them surprising because it's when you least expect them. It's like, okay, so what are you not looking at? What's hiding in the nooks and crannies?
Well, and on the other side of that, I know there are many civilizations that really laud the spider as, like, grandmother spider as the storyteller, the
The
story
weaver.
weaver, because they
Yes.
weave they weave the past and the future together into the present kind of thing. And
Well, and
there's
I know I've seen when I did have an ant issue that the spiders were helping me with that ant issue. So it was like, oh, so we've got a little symbiosis going on here.
yep. And it's funny because to me uh sometimes an insect message can be even more distinct than an animal, because sometimes you just see an animal and you think, oh, that was odd, but then you don't think anything of it. But then, like, all of a sudden you're in your house and a big monster praying mantis is on your wall and you're like, wait, where did that come from?
Exactly. It's that element of surprise really gets your attention. And
Yes.
that's a big message. It's
Yes,
like, yep, I have something to say to you.
exactly. And so, like, one time, I'll give you another great example. I love that we talk about these things, and I think while we're talking, oh, I had an example of this. Oh, I had an example of this. And I went through it 2 years ago. There was in like 2 months or 3 months, I got stung in my butt 3 times by, like, a bee. Remember this?
I remember.
And I was so perplexed because I'm like, this is obviously a very loud message, because it was not a very pleasant experience any of the 3 times
Right.
getting stung. Because I before that had not been stung by a bee since I had been a child at all. And all 3 times it was completely unexpected, or like there was no bees. I didn't see the bee until after it stung me. And
Exactly.
it was always a bumblebee. So at least I wasn't killing any bees by having to get that message, which I was thankful for. But for me it was, so what is literally kicking my butt, stinging me in the butt, saying, wake up and smell the coffee.
That's a powerful one. And
Yeah.
how do you look away from that?
Right. And so it was funny because after the second time I finally got it, and the third time I was stressed because it was like, oh my God, I thought I got it. So I obviously missed something. And there's something for me to go back and look at. And I was just like, okay, no more stinging on my butt, please. Thank you.
I'm choosing to not receive messages that way.
Yes, exactly. But that was very powerful. It was an intense message for me. And because it was something I really didn't want to look at, it was very scary to me, and it was very uncomfortable, and something I would much have rather looked the other way. The ego would much have rather looked the other way. And it was like, nope, look at here. Nope, look at here. Nope, keep looking.
Right. I had a neighbor one time who, speaking of bees, who just really hated her house. She redid everything. Nothing was ever good enough. She'd redo the kitchen and, gripe about it for a year and a half and then have to redo it again. And nothing was ever good enough. And turned out she had an infestation of honeybees in her house. And I remember thinking to myself that the bees' messages were, well, it's good enough for us. It's like, and the designs that the bees had made when they aren't in their hives with the racks in them, the designs are so intricate and beautiful.
Oh, I
just incredible.
I think bees are incredible beings.
And
Incredible.
when they tore the boards off the side of the house and exposed that, it was like such beauty and such sweetness
Hmm.
with the honey, and it was just one of those. And unfortunately, she took it as a message of, well, I just need to sell my house. But I really saw it clearly as, that this is an extension of you and you're being neglectful. Again, that self-care and that look of how you nourish yourself, and at what point does it become good enough.
Yes.
So
Yes.
but I love honeybees. They have such great messages.
Oh, and we just don't have enough of them. So
Well, that too.
I always say if anybody says anything about like honeybees, I'm like, oh no, no, leave them alone. I have an entire pollinator bed in front of my house to attract them.
Right. Yes.
So,
Yes,
but
I have a neighbor who has several hives, and I'm always, when I mow the lawn first thing in the spring, and the dandelions are really the only flowers that are up, I mow around them to save the dandelions because I know that that's their first food in the spring.
mhm.
And I'm conscious, and I'm like, oh, Ed's bees, we got to feed Ed's bees.
Right. And I mean, bees, they have look at the message they bring to us too, is like they're some of the most productive, I mean, some of the most important beings that are here, because if we didn't have bees, we wouldn't have
Absolutely.
us because
Right.
they,
And they're very purpose driven, just like we talked about the plants and that flower that time, and the bees, they have jobs and they operate as a community, and they are interdependent, and they they communicate. I mean, they're just so complex, so complex.
yes. And so what's funny is like most people can see the purpose for a lot of certain bugs, right? And then there are some that say, well, I just don't know, I don't know what this is. So what's another funny one is when people say, I don't know what mosquitoes are for, or what, ticks are for.
Right.
And it's like, well, but what are they to you? Because if they're biting you up, then what's eating you alive? Like what's eating you up?
Yes.
What's
Yes.
and a tick, what's sucking the life out of you?
And I mean, the message is so literal that it's like, how can you miss that? But
Yeah.
we do, because we
And
think of them
let's
as
move up
just
from
a
tick.
bug.
Yeah, I know. It's like, and then you can move up from a tick to a leech.
Oh, absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, I know. It's like, and we do. We again, that's something we easily write off in victimhood. It was just a bug.
Well, and you can sit there and say, two people sitting there and one gets bitten up and the other one doesn't. And it's like, there's a message there.
Right. And it's not just I have sweeter blood.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, the thing is like you got to look at the literal piece of those things, right? Um there's so many bug messages, and I'm just trying to think of certain, like it's funny because like sometimes I'll out of nowhere see a stink bug, right? And stink bugs have a
Hmm.
certain kind of message. And but the thing is, so like animals and plants, there are standards. So you can always look them up. You can Google, like, what does this mean? What is the spiritual meaning of this?
Yes.
But the
Yes.
thing to always ask is that what it means for me? Is that what does it feel like that's what it means for me?
Hmm.
Because to me, there have just been specific times where I have had bugs show up and they are just like you're saying, like so purpose driven, right? Like the bees,
Yes.
that it's like, well, most bugs have a very specific purpose, even roaches, because roaches eat up wood and, rotting material, like that kind of stuff. They help to basically make the world.
Decompose.
Yes, I was gonna say they help decomposition in the world. They're they're compost makers.
Exactly. And, we often forget that a lot of times part of the creative process begins with the destructive process, because a caterpillar doesn't turn into a butterfly without not being a caterpillar anymore.
And what a message, right? All of those insects that have those larval stages that are very different from their adult, like the caterpillar to the butterfly, or the
Or
caterpillar to the
moth,
moth,
right?
or the ladybug. If anybody's ever seen the ladybug larva, they look like little baby dragons.
Or baby alligators or something.
Yes,
Yes.
very different from what the ladybug looks like. And that's all transformation. So beetles too. Beetles they have a larva stage and then an adult stage. So more transformation and evolution
Yes.
within a life, kind of
Right.
thing.
And change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when and sometimes insects. So before I did this work years ago, I had an organic herb nursery, and I learned how to read things in the greenhouses by what insects were present, right? So it's sort of like we're talking about the plants and how interrelated everything was. But in consciousness, I can say, if you see trends with bugs around you, right? The key is to look at the trend and say, what is it showing me in this trend, that it might be like a phase thing for me to shift into, or to shift away from, or you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah. Like an overarching theme.
mhm.
Yeah.
Like there was something that somebody I know had been going through and was in sort of denial about. And I remember, this was probably 10 years ago. They were going to mow the lawn and and they had a riding mower, and they ran over, I guess, a hornet's nest in the ground
Mm.
or whatever.
Yellow
Ground.
jackets.
Yeah, yellow jacket. And or what they think was, because the funniest part was when they went out to show others in their household the nest, there weren't any around.
Oh, wow. Whoops.
So that was a very interesting thing. And it's like, well, so then what was that message for you? Is, oh, tread very carefully, because you are about to get yourself stung.
Yeah.
Stay in denial all you want, but it's gonna sting you if you don't pay attention, kind of thing. So
Interesting.
yeah. So I mean, that's the thing, is like, how is it affecting you versus somebody else around you, or not affecting others around you, but just affecting you? Like you're saying about getting bitten when nobody else
Hmm.
is getting bitten around you,
Yes. Yes.
like
Or
that.
you have an infestation of something inside that typically is only seen outside.
Yeah.
So where are your boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
Where are your boundaries? And are you allowing people to take advantage of you?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good example.
Yep. So the next time you get irritable, like about anything, aphids on your plants.
Mm, right.
So, like you were talking about the dandelion earlier,
Uh-huh.
in our plant thing, right? In our plant episode, there's like, if you see certain bugs on plants, and I'll go back to my herb nursery days, there is some imbalance that's happening. If there's a bug on the plant that is eating the plant, and it's, like making an unhealthy situation, there is some imbalance that is there, right? So then the question is for yourself, how that particular plant that you're upset about, that's being eaten up by aphids, well, where's the imbalance in me that's going to cause me maybe to create disease or discomfort or something in my reality, or is creating that I'm not looking at? Like, what's the imbalance for me to see?
Wow, that's a great one. That's a great one. Because plants and animals and I mean it's nature in general has that intrinsic balance that it always seeks to rebalance.
Yes, absolutely.
And so those messages for you is, where are you seeking balance? Where should you be seeking balance?
Because if you are and so I find that insects and plants and animals all have this very magnified reception of your energy, of our energy fields, because we're all part of that interrelated whole, even if we're not consciously acknowledging that. So if they're around you, they're reflecting something back to you that you are emitting from yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And so I feel like sometimes those are even more stronger messages, and we don't even see them as messages more often than not.
Oh, right. Because we're so fixated on getting rid of because it's a bug.
Yes. So next time you have an insect bugging you, ask yourself, what is bugging me?
That's excellent.
Thanks for listening to us on Solving Me. If you found this podcast helpful, make sure to subscribe so you get notice every time we post a new episode.
And for a short time, we have a special bonus for you. Go to solvingme.net to download your free ebook, which outlines the next level of conscious solutions for your inner investigation.
Be sure to help us spread the word. Share us with others you know who want to solve the puzzles of their everyday life through the filter of expanded consciousness and have fun doing it.
One more thing. Do you have some puzzling life circumstances where you feel blocked and you'd like our take on what's going on? Send us your conscious puzzle at connect@solvingme.net, and maybe you'll be the topic of a future episode.
Until next time, happy sleuthing.